So, hi everyone, and hope you're having a great day. Today, we want to tell you some of the things that we've come across. So, 10 things that we've come across since we've moved to Spain that we think are really quite crazy. So, for our first one, over to Colin.
Hello. One of the first things you're going to encounter when you get here, pretty much straight away, is the bureaucracy, the paperwork. Be aware it's of a different nature than it is in the UK. Spain is highly regionalised, and all the regions are very proud of their own cultures and their own ways of doing things. So the way of doing things over here in Murcia may be very different to how they do it up in the north or in Madrid and other places. It will take some getting used to. Sometimes you'll be surprised by how quickly things are done. Most of the time you will become less and less surprised about how long things take to do. Across all sorts of things, in particular our case with gaining residency, two very different experiences, one of which is still ongoing.
Mine.
Of course, yes. But it will hit you. Not to say they don't have online banking and things like that, which they do, and that works fine for us. It's more to do with the sort of the governmental nature of things, local governments and stuff like that.
And everything's in paper,
scale.
Isn't it? You can't where we've been used to in the UK. Everything you can do online. Here, everything has to have a paper copy.
They are getting there with various types of authorised and certified online registrations. They are. It's fair to say. Does that work as smoothly as you might expect, or as easily? Not in our experiences. No. Others may have a different experience, but be aware that is something that you're probably going to need help with people over here, the guest areas that they have, and other people, local expats who are experienced, have been here for many years and can help you with that. First thing that we noticed, and it's something we notice on a pretty regular basis still, I'm afraid to
yes,
say.
Definitely. I think secondly, one of the things we did find, and it is linked to that in a little way, is that we were shocked because I have worked in lots of different places over the years, mainly Greece, Cyprus, Austria, those sort of places. And everywhere I've worked before, they've all had a good amount of being able to speak English. And I know it's very arrogant of us in a way, but I did expect them to be speaking a little bit of English, but really and truly, particularly this area I think that we've settled in, which is the Costa Calida, the Murcia region, they just don't speak very much English at all. So you have to make the effort now, which is great, and it is definitely something we wanted to do, wasn't it, to learn more Spanish?
Absolutely.
And Colin's done brilliantly. I've not done quite so brilliantly. I think I'm a bit shy of talking about it. I do understand quite a lot, but actually speaking it, no, I'm not as confident as
No,
as
I don't
you.
think, not quite. You do understand, as you say, understand more. And Murcia is still a very Spanish corner of Spain. Thankfully, that's why we like it. It's why we like living here. It isn't like the Costas on the east coast and the south coast. It's very, very different. Still very Spanish, and great. We should be prepared to make the effort to speak language. Of course, we should. That goes without saying, I think. But again, your expectation when you get here is that if you've even seen Spain on the telly, is that all the locals will speak English, and it's not the case. It's not the case.
I think as well, what you have to get used to is that things such as going to the doctors, going to a hospital if you need any hospital appointments, that sort of thing, often people pay to take a translator with them. There's loads of people out here that do translating, and there's lots of people that speak. People have we've got a very good friend who speaks brilliant, fluent Spanish. So I think a lot of people do speak Spanish, but you have to get to know these people, and you have to be prepared to pay a little bit if you want to take someone with you. We also, with the app, we use the Google Translate lots, don't we? And people are learning on the Duolingo, or they're going to Spanish lessons in our local town. So there's lots of facilities to rectify that. But if you're thinking of moving to Spain, a great thing to do would be to start learning Spanish beforehand, because you definitely do need it, and particularly in this area.
Right, so one of the things that we have noticed, and again it's continually noticing, is the driving, the nature of the driving. Now this is not going to be some Brit expat moaning about all these foreigners knowing they don't know how to drive. It's not, because we live in an urbanisation which is primarily British, and some of the worst driving I've encountered is here with the Brits. Yeah, the number of times you'll meet somebody coming up the wrong lane or going the wrong way round a little roundabout, and you know they're primarily going to be British. And that's not to slaughter my fellow countrymen at all. There's good and bad driving everywhere. It's just that it's a little bit confusing for some people here. Although the driving is different over here. We're from the northwest of the UK, M6, M62 intersection area. And like a lot of the UK, we're used to the way Brits drive. Can be increasingly, I've noticed over the years I've been driving, increasingly, if I was being kind, I'd say positive. If I was being unkind, I'd say aggressive. We're all like to take a chance when we see it.
Faster.
Faster.
Oh, much faster.
It's not that way over here, certainly not in this part of the world. You're more than likely going to get frustrated as people are going too slow, or going round corners too slow, or not indicating, or generally driving as if they're away with the fairies a lot of the time. Not really aware that there's other roads on the road, not really aware of the fact that there may be two lanes on a road, one going one way, one the other. I find that a little different. The classic is the way they tackle roundabouts here. So the Spanish will generally go all the way round the outside lane of a roundabout, even if they're going to turn left, if they're going off at 9 o'clock when you enter at 6 o'clock.
But there's a funny rule, isn't there, on this? There is a different rule.
Okay, ever so slightly different, but actually the law here is pretty much the same in the UK, which is you're meant to use the inner lane if you're going beyond the halfway points. Just got to make sure you come off a little bit earlier than the UK tell you to do when we're back home. Most of the Spanish we find, again, around here, which is a bit more rural than some of the big cities, they just stick in the outside lane and going all the way around. And I confess, I've joined them. You know, rather than sort of try and tackle coming off when there's like 3 or 4 cars who are just trundling their way around the outside, I just get in the outside lane and go all the way around the roundabout, regardless of where I'm going. There's a local roundabout up by the motorway near us, which has got 3 lanes on it, and they've completely wasted the money making the 2 inside ones because nobody ever uses them. But hey,
but also what we've got to contend with is we've got lots of Germans that bring their RVs down in the winter down here. We've obviously got lots of French, Belgian, Dutch that are moving into this area. So we do have to contend with everybody's what they think is safe driving. But luckily, one thing we did notice on the roads is that it's just so quiet on the roads here. And you notice it in particular when you go back. I go back to visit my mum, and we go back to visit our families and my son. And I get scared to death on the motorways because he's driving and he's cutting in and out and driving to last minute to come off at a junction. And we just don't have that anymore, do we?
Not really, no.
I don't think Josh will be pleased with me saying that, but hey. No. Shall I go on to the next one?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's no worse, and it's far more relaxing generally than it is to drive in the UK, would be my summary.
But be prepared.
Be prepared for differences. Yeah. Take your time. Nothing to be worried about. Okay,
so the fourth thing that we have found very crazy and quite different about living out here is the timings, isn't it? The timings of your day and what you do in your day. Now, we were always generally sort of up around, let's say 7-8 o'clock breakfast, lunch about 1ish, and our meal in the evening tended to be around about say 7, something like that. But it's just not like that at all. Here, they all tend to go out and then have a little break to go for breakfast. So you find that a lot of the restaurants and bars are full with people just having a bit of tapas and having a bit of breakfast, even if they're working. You see that, don't you? Then lunchtime, they seem to work a bit later. So they work to maybe 1, half 1, 2 o'clock. And then they all will go for quite a nice lunch and have a leisurely lunch. Then it's...
long.
Yeah, long. Then and with a few beers or wine. And then it's a siesta time. So they all tend to go for sleeps or rests or whatever they do for 2 hours. It's about 2 to 3 hours. and then everything starts back up again about 6 o'clock, half six. But they don't eat, do they, till... Well, if we find that our British friends and ourselves, if we eat and going out to eat, you can safely eat in a restaurant round about 7:30 to 9 o'clock without having many of the locals around. The locals all start eating about 9:30, 10 o'clock, and evening times are busy, so it gives you a fantastic experience if you go down to the port here and everybody's walking round. The children are all out still, and now I do know this is the same in Greece and Cyprus, but they don't tend to eat as regularly as late, is what I've found in my experience. So the Spanish have a real culture, and you often see the young ones, they're going out about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, and their night time is just starting. I mean, when we spent time in Madrid, we all went and had a rest. I went out about 9:30 for something to eat, but nightlife was not really getting going till about 2 o'clock in the morning. So, and we were walking back to the hotel about 5 o'clock in the morning. So the timings are just so different, particularly in the cities, I would say, than they are back in the UK for us. So that's definitely something to be aware of.
Yeah, sort of linked with that is, again, I'm conscious this part of the world, but I know from a bit of research that it's similar across Spain, that so the cost of living here, the prices here, are generally cheaper. This does not go for some of the costas, by the way, some of the holiday spots where they have their own sort of little microeconomy, and pricing is a bit different compared to what you'll get here. But for local living here, cost of living is actually, I would say, a good bit cheaper than it is back in the UK. Fresh food, obviously, you'd expect it to be. It's a lovely, warm, generally dry part of the world. Fresh food you can buy cheaply, you can buy lots of it. You can eat well very inexpensively over here if you wanted to. If you want all your Brit favourites, Heinz baked beans, HP or whatever, you may have to pay a bit more for them here than you would back home, imported and all the rest of it. But if you eat local food here, prices are great. Similar for the utility bills and what have you, electricity, water, petrol. They're all, I would say, a fair bit cheaper. Our water bill happens to be reasonably high, but that's because we have frankly, a decent sized pool that we've got to keep topping up with evaporation and what have you. And we use water for watering the garden, the plants behind you. You can see some of it in the background.
About 6 showers a day as well.
Lots of showers, particularly in the summer, of course. Yeah. So you do get through the water a bit, but again, I don't think it's any more expensive certainly for the size of property it is back home. Generally, a lot cheaper. One thing, of course, that you may be aware of is a lot of the restaurants here will do things like a menu del dia, the menu of the day, and even a menu del noche, which is like a sort of set starter mains. Was
that Franco that brought that in, did you tell me?
Well, I think it was one of his, during the 50s, I think, one of his ministers brought in. There's some dispute, different stories about whether it was to boost tourism or whether it was actually to give the locals, make sure the locals were getting a good old standard square meal, and they were very cheap. They're still pretty cheap. You still get choices on the menu. It's not like it's just one thing you have to have.
As an example, I think a menu del dia tends to be around $12.95 for 3 courses with a drink and with a coffee or something like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Evening time, it tends to be $15.95, something like that in our area.
Yeah.
So that's really reasonable, is about the service. So I think there's only one word I can use for this, and it's slow, isn't it?
Inconsistent. That'd be a good way of putting it, I think. Anyway.
I don't want to be very critical of this, but you have to practice a lot of patience when you're being served, whether it's in restaurants, whether you've gone into some government office, whether you're in the post office, queues in supermarkets. Service is not the speediest, and they do like a chat whilst they're serving people, which is lovely if you're not in a rush. And at the moment, we don't tend to be in a rush, so it's okay. But you can see that there's some people that really get a little bit exasperated, don't they? Particularly in the supermarkets near where we are, and people are wanting to get off. They're wanting to do what they need to do, and no service out here, although is wonderful, can be really quite slow. So that whole mañana ethic, just get ready for that and really just try and go with the flow, because no matter how irate you get or how impatient you get, it's not going to improve at the minute. So is what we found, isn't it? We enjoy talking to the waiters, we enjoy talking to the ladies who are serving on the counters and things, but so we do have a local post office where we live, and you do tend to come back quite angry sometimes from there, because they say, and one of the ladies talks to the cleaner, and you're there trying to get your parcel or pick your parcel up, and it really is quite amusing, isn't it, Rick?
It's just a different culture, you know. If there's a local there that they know, they'll have a chat. If the queue's 3 people or 30 people long,
they don't care.
Just wait, hang on. I would say the bit about the service in restaurants, it's generally pretty good, although they do have a habit at times in different places of just simply forgetting what you've asked for, whether they've written it down or not. So, you know, you might be missing a dish. You just got to remind them every now and then, to be honest with you. Quite commonly, and in fact, one of the best bar restaurants we know, local one in the town, they don't, if you're taking an order, they don't write it down. And when you go to pay the bill, they ask you what you've had. So you've got to remember all the tapas you've had, all the different drinks you've had, and he tots up in his head as he goes along. And that's a great, food is great in there. Okay, so again, it's a little bit different. It's just got to be, there's more of an social intercourse about ordering the food and making sure you've got what you've asked for. You may have to remind them sometimes. It's not 100% efficient. So number 7, I'm going to call it family culture. Not necessarily one family. It could be a big extended family, friends and all the rest of it. You'll see a lot of people here. Again, you'll see them mostly in the summer, but it happens all year round, where they'll go out in a large family group, time on the beach together, under a big beach gazebo, full table out for eating dinner together.
Barbecues that make you jealous.
The lot. It's a you know, when I say family culture, of course it's a family culture in the UK. I'm talking about extended family here. You know, numbers of generations, all out in large groups, and again in the restaurants, you'll see that it's quite common. All across one table, all sharing a few dishes of food between them.
That was lovely what we saw last week, wasn't it?
Down in the port was a restaurant we went to, and we couldn't work out whether it was one lady's 50th birthday or the elderly grandparents' 50th wedding anniversary. It might have been the pair of them, to be honest, but we were sat down.
But you feel part of it. They sort of were laughing and joking with us as well. They didn't invite us for any cake, unfortunately, but we felt included in their celebration. And you do on the beach as well, don't you? You feel included. It's not as if it's like, oh, what are they all doing, all set to one side. They do include you. They laugh and join in and sort of talk to you, even though you often don't understand everything. But it's such a wonderful culture, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite encouraging to see this happening. They've got the weather for it, of course. But it's still a lovely thing to see. Yeah,
and that leads me into number 8 quite well, which is the fiestas here. If you haven't been to a Spanish fiesta, we strongly recommend that you go. Our first year here, just visiting, we went down to the port in Mazarron, and I just couldn't believe it. And since then, we've seen a few more fiestas. We've got more that we definitely want to see, haven't we, as well? But when they organise any event, they really do go over the top. And I mean, they do spend a lot of money and a lot of time on these fiestas. They make these fantastic floats. They all practice these dances. There's all different dance troupes, all ages as well. So you get the really tiny little ones up to, one of the ladies from my yoga class was actually in one of those floats or doing a dance this year. So she'd been, she did tell me that the costumes cost about 800 to 1,000 euros though. So it's an expensive affair. But you can see that when they do it. So they tend to start maybe about 7:30, 8 o'clock in the evening. And they carry on till it's about 10:30, isn't it?
Depending on the time of year.
Yeah,
it can go well past midnight, some of them.
Dancing, music, floats of all
Well
sorts. They really are unbelievable. So I'll try and put some pictures on of the different fiestas that we've either seen or that are around. But it's really well worth trying to get to one of those because they're amazing. And often you can either take a little beach chair with you, or they have chairs lined up along the route that it's going to take, and you can sit down, take your little bag of drinks or anything, and there's your entertainment, your free entertainment for the evening, and it's a fabulous cultural thing that we love to do, don't we? And we love to see. So definitely recommend those.
Yeah, very, very, very social nature to it, really. Number 9. It's going to sound obvious when I start off, but bear with me, and that's the temperatures. Over here, particularly in this little corner. One of my little favourite facts is that this part of Spain, this southeastern corner, a large part of it is designated as mainland Europe's only semi-arid region.
And believe me, he's quoted that a lot.
Yes, I say that a lot. Yeah, there you go. I like it. So basically, it's semi-desert in parts. Okay, behind us, there's a bit of green you can see, but all that's planted and has to be watered and the rest of it. And of course, they do grow a lot of stuff down here. A lot of nuts, obviously olives, things like that. The heat in the summer, and again, particularly this year, is fierce. There's no two ways about it. You've got to be careful. This year, the entirety of July and the vast majority of August, where most days we were in the sun, in the open, we were touching 40, if not beyond it. And the same applies for the evenings. They don't cool down that much. You're looking at mid to high 20s overnight. And now that's great. If you're coming out for a week's break or holiday, you want to quit, you want a bit of sunbathe, you've got to be careful. But it can be unrelenting when it's like that for weeks on end. You're trying to find ways of cooling down. You just do what the Spanish do and don't come out during the hours of daylight, frankly.
No,
they seem to come out at night.
That's not true.
I'm exaggerating a little, but you certainly won't see them sunbathing through the hot early hours of the afternoon. They tend to come to the beach first thing in the morning, and then they'll come out again, go down to the beach as it's going dark, and they'll start all the barbecue and all that. Again, it's blindingly obvious. South of Spain, it's going to be hot, but until you've lived it, you don't realise just how. You've got to make sure you're prepared for it, just like you would anywhere in the world with weather. Make sure you're prepared for that level of heat.
If you buy a house that has been built by Spanish builders, though, what you will find is they're mainly built out of concrete, and they're built to keep the heat out. So the houses here are quite cool, even in the middle of the day. They're not too bad. I mean, people do have AC on, they have fans on, but I find that if you want to escape that heat, if you go inside here, it's not the same as when we get a bit of heat, say in the UK. Then it's very hot and stuffy inside. These houses are built to keep cool. Now, that's not wonderful around Christmas time and December time, is it? So we obviously need some artificial heating system then. But the majority of the year, it's absolutely fantastic because they are lovely and cool inside, and obviously the AC or the fans will help that as well. But I love the sun. I love heat. That's, for me, is just the best. I hate rain and I hate the cold. However, even for me, July and August, in the afternoons, I don't really poke my head out the door until about 5:30 in the afternoon, because that over that midday time, oh wow, it's really hot, isn't it?
Yeah.
And even the swimming pool's like a great big hot bath, isn't it?
Height of summer, end of July, early August. For me, it's uncomfortably warm. We're talking 30 degrees plus for the water.
Yeah.
Just last bit on that, which is, I think, Liz, you're alluding to, which is in the winter, the heat escapes pretty quickly. It's designed to get out of the house. You don't want to keep it in. So you've just got to be mindful that this isn't a temperate zone like the UK. In the background, you can see some clouds. That's very unusual. We've normally got clear skies, and that means the heat from the land disappears quite quickly, and it gets quite cool in the winter. So you've got to be prepared for that too. You're still wearing, if you go for a trip to the cities in the winter, you're still wearing coats, scarves, hat, and the like. Don't imagine it's like that all the time. Certainly during the evening, at least.
So the final thing that is number 10 on our things that, well, they did shock me actually a little bit more than you, I think, really, but that'd be because you're a bit of a miser, really. But anyway.
How dare you?
It did shock me because they don't tip really over here. So the staff are not used to getting tips, and walk away before you even try and give a tip. And it was a bit shocking for me that, they're trying really hard, but there's no culture of tipping over here. But we still do it, but it's just small amounts. So having been to America and travelled to a lot of different places where tips are expected, it really was a bit of a shock for us, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's just not part of the culture. It wasn't. I think it's becoming part of the culture. The more and more, Brits and Northern Europeans who visit, and we all tend to tip to a great less extent. We do what I think a lot of Brits do, which is if we get good service, we tip. If it's bog standard or not very good, we don't. Which is the way it's the way I've always done it.
But you do get that surprise when you leave a tip,
sometimes
don't you?
You do.
Yeah, we went out the
Sometimes
other night to a friend's house, and we went with a taxi driver, and he was trying to give us the tip back, wasn't he? He wasn't expecting it, and he didn't think it was necessary, and he was trying to give it the tip back, and it was only something like €6 between 6 of us. It wasn't a lot of money, but they're not used to it. So that's the final thing. So I think the reason for doing this is I know there's lots of people have contacted me, people have told me they're thinking of moving over to Spain. So there's lots of people who are thinking of doing it, and that's just some of the things that I think will help people and stop you having the shock that we might have had about different things. So 10 things that we think are quite crazy and quite different about Spain and worth knowing before you move over here. Tomorrow we're off to another area, aren't we, for a trek, which we're going to let you all see.
Yeah, a little bit of a walk, a place called just north of Tatana, a little bit of a ravine come riverside walk thing there. A part of a much longer walk, but we're going to be taking the camera and we'll see how we get on up there.
Yeah, I hope there's not too many heights. But yeah, if you want to watch that, please subscribe, please like this video, and any support we can get, it'll help us on our little journey. And I hope you're enjoying what we're doing to tell you a little bit more about our life in Spain.
Thanks.